Hello YouTube and a very special welcome back to the channel here today. Today we're going to be watching Revolutionary Girl Utena episode 33 and we're excited to be doing so, but albeit with a little bit of baggage. So I've been alerted to this episode, I've been told it's an important one, I've been told to do it solo, and I've been told it's a recap, I believe. So I don't know how all those things coalesce into what we're talking about, but I have some theories, which we'll talk about. And I'll talk about them relatively soon, because if I pop over here to the YouTube comments, there's not that many. It's just really Chobo Ribby and Victoria here, you know, a few little sentences and that kind of thing. Nothing too major. I'd call them more jokes than anything else. Like, this is pretty funny. Because I do quite often. I was even doing it today. Or yesterday, I didn't shower today. So I'm kind of stinking up the joint if you wanted to know that. Anyway, and I mentioned Alabama, which I'm imagining is the context for that particular joke there, and the context for that particular joke was incest. Thus, you don't really want to be associated with that, I wouldn't have thought. But again, I am but one Australian boy, so I didn't even know any of the context there, really. I just kind of repeating what I heard online. And yeah, Victoria here just confirming that we love the yap. I like the yap, I just don't want to edit it all the time. For certain episodes, it's worth it. I find myself, I talk a little bit too much about stuff that I don't think deserves the talking about to that level, I guess. So, anyway, I'm rambling. We should jump into the episode relatively soon because apparently it's a big one, and I'm thinking from the preview last week, we're implying it to be probably a little bit more about Akio Anshi stuff, you would think. So now I'm thinking recap within that context. If we're talking about that relationship, are we going to go into some specifics about how Anshi was feeling in certain portions of what we've seen up to now? That would be how I would coalesce those two things into the one thing. I think we're going to recontextualize old moments by looking through Anshi's perspective and learning a little bit about what she's about. If I had to guess what the episode's about, that's what I would guess. Other than that, I guess I'm just going to watch this thing and we're going to record our thoughts about it after the fact. I don't know what else to say, really. Because again, like, we'll finish a core and then there'll be a recap. So have we finished a core? Was the last note of that core the, I guess, cautionary tale about Nanami and how that may impact the other two girls in that little kind of... It's like a mirror, but there's three mirrors between Anshi, Nanami, and Utena. Yeah, because things went bad for Nanami, right? And then at the very end, I think that, yeah, those Nanami episodes were so good last week. Nanami kind of making that power play at the very end, saying, no, this isn't what I want either. I want to be on top. I want to be everything to everybody. And then ultimately failing in that, comparing herself against Utena in the process and losing everything, being at rock bottom. That line about the flyers as well. Just, yeah, how do we apply that to the other characters? Should lead to some interesting results. So yeah, we'll jump into this pretty... Hang on, I forgot to like shill the Patreon, like at all. Okay, we need to shill the Patreon. Also, there's YouTube comments from before. If you're a patron and you support me at the $5.99 and up tier, you can access the YouTube comments and tell me things early if you want to speak to me about Utena, because I like to talk about it. That or the Discord. Either way works. Let me get up that list of patrons. So a very big thank you to my patrons, starting with Annie Gregg, Mickey Babbers, Trails Plus Plus, Adley, Bobbin, Chobo Ribby, Domobot, Ed, Fleur Nightingale, Fruit, Funny Fat Guy, Gloriana Tenebrae, Gus N, Heath, Ika, Yako Yavanen, Jacob R, Joran, Clem, Nosta, Lou, Madlad, Max, Mish, Pencil Sharp 333, Ramen Boy, Ron Lad BNK, Saint Lily, Sam1373, Skeleton, Surrogate Corpse, Victoria S, Without a Net, Zach, Binchy, Hans Peter, Kelvin, Marsh, and Aidan O'Brien. So thank you very much to all those people for giving me money on Patreon. Thank you. I'm going to buy a new audio setup pretty soon, but I was just waiting for the next month of Patreon to kick in so I can kind of put the money back into the channel in a way. I'm also thinking about upgrading my computer because I was running that Elden Ring shit last night and it wasn't going too hot, and my computer hasn't been going too hot in general anyway, but probably based on all the processing I do for the channel. Anyway, I'm rambling. We should jump into the episode, I think. Again, some more chill stuff. Discord. You can join the Discord and do that kind of thing if you want to. Subscribe, like the video. let's jump into this thing, shall we? Rightio, I have episode 33 of Shoujo Kakame Utena up there ready to go. 23 minutes and 28 seconds on this one, so please sync up accordingly with your copy. There will be a picture-in-picture version in the description below, and I'm using the PGS sub. Should be very similar to the Nozomi sub, which is available for free on YouTube if you so desire to access it that way. It's completely and totally up to you. So yeah, we're going to give this a 3, 2, 1 and jump right in. Radio, 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, Utena. And my shit is loud. Oh my god. Oh, we're back. Yeah, especially after last week. Last week was a trip for sure. This may be premature, Utena family, but when we're replacing Utena here in however many weeks' time, you guys should mention stuff in the recommendations for the channel on the Discord, and then I'll like take those recommendations. Because early in the week on the Monday, I don't mind doing something that's, I guess, as rabbit holey as deep as Utena, because I have the time to do so. Where in other slots on the channel, it gets a little bit more dicey there. So if there's something really heady and, you know, kind of hard to understand, maybe recommend them. They're always some of my favorite stuff I've done. So I really liked doing Tatami Galaxy. I really liked doing Lane, Monogatari, of course. Yeah, so if you got anything in that ilk, in that vein, then pop a recommendation in. Also, yeah, reading the comments when the episodes go public as well. You guys are killing it, by the way. So good. Ooh. Interesting. Oh, maybe not. What is this carnival? We love a rose-scented embrace. Mm-hmm. Is this a different read? It's a different vocal read of the same story. Okay, so that's Utena. And that's the killer line, right? Ah! Jump scare. Yeah. Talk to me. Himamiya. Constellations. Silhouetted. The prince who runs through the night. I think we got that last week as well. Yes? Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Me too. I don't know. Talk to Seonji. What is this radio show? Well, that's a soft confirmation, huh? Also, the meta layer to this is very interesting too. What does he do on the side? Is it? As long as no one catches me. What? Hmm. Okay. Diamonds are forever. Sionji was waiting on that one with bated breath. Yeah. Okay, he's off to his side job. Hey, this is a 40 zone. Oh, it's playing the music. I'm recording too, which, oh my god, I thought I wasn't recording there for a second. Okay, he's Batman. Well, that's really interesting too. It's going up by like powers of 2. Ah, stop. Oh, is this how we're doing it? That's very fun. I'm off to do my side job. So we were talking about Sanji the entire time. The music in this show is so killer. Interesting. The Morning Star. Something about Lucifer, I remember. The way we're cutting this together is insane. Hey, look, it's the champ. The king of imposters. And turn that off, you reckon? Hmm. What is the metaphor trying to say? Jesus Christ. I think you may not be that far away from doing so. Hmm. Okay, bye. It's from Mum. Sometimes family isn't all it cracked up to be, Utena. Especially with the context of the Archeo stuff. She just called him cringe or something. Yeah, I remember. Don't talk to me about the new mother. Yep. The robotic chicken metaphor. We mustn't forget. Not robot chicken, that's something else. You gonna be on the phone again? No, not really. Okay. Everyone calls her alum, and now they call her teacup. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Utena. You're on one. I'm waiting for a few things to click into place, but I've got a pretty good idea of what's going on, I think. Yeah. Not the bread. It'll get stale. You guys fridge bread people? I'm not a fridge bread guy. People be freezing bread too. Can't be doing that. Hmm. Yeah. Somebody just made like an edit of that episode. It was good though. I feel like I got that episode pretty well. Had some interesting things to say. All right, we're back. The radio show. Mm. Yeah. Did he even answer the first one? I don't think he did. Okay. Don't get me started on miracles. Hmm. Yeah, you sheath that sword. Butcher. The Arthur meme. True. Hey, this is great. It's just reminding me of all the things I've had to say over the past like month. Really? Hmm. Yeah, all the machinations here, for sure. And you two trying to like out scum each other. We love to see it. Hmm. Just lie. Just lie harder. My favorite tower in the world. There it is. Mate, I always cook the wrong amount of pasta. I'm so bad at that. I'd rather overseason than underseason. Just eat it all, you'll be right. Freeze it, leftovers. Okay. Clearly that was a metaphor for something. It was a lie. Amazing scene. Just play it verbatim. I don't care. Show her stumbling right now. Yes. Amazing. Incredible. Worldview changing. My skin is cleared up. My hair looks great after seeing that scene. I love that the symbol of giving up hope there as well. Because so much of her theming is based around hope. Look at me yapping about Jiri again. I could do it all day. Love that too. The rain specifically coming down from just the castle. And in doing so, kind of freed her, in a way. In a monkey's paw type way almost. Cool. I don't think we really have Nanami left, right? And the Utena stuff, I guess. Yeah, that's a sleeping Utena. Um, now listen, so much of this episode has been POV shots of a person we don't know, potentially. uh, played around? And you think about what to have for lunch? Something about salmon? Oh, I love asparagus. So yummy. Who are you looking at? Okay, well, you're not talking to him and Mia. You love a tamagoyaki. Uh, mm, bite your finger. Who? It's me? She's talking to me? This is troublingly intimate. She's obsessed with refrigeration. Yeah? 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 Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, chat room, we got there. Oh no. I mean, that's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is the timeline here, too? And then, I mean, you put the pieces together. You're getting roses from her. Okay, gotcha. And then that this is the start of the episode, right? She had a sharp ass nose there. I'll say it every day. You can poke an eye out with that thing. Yeah, rightio, creepo. Get out of here. Gotcha. Okay, so that's how you put it all together, right? Okay. Ah, what is this ED? Gross. Clearly bad. Let's be real here. It's clearly like a bad thing I just saw. Putting it out there. But most of all, I'm interested in the way the story was told there. Non-linear. Kind of almost a mini mystery in of itself. So much of the camera being placed. I don't know what you would call it. Almost like a second-person POV perspective. And again, you only pick it up through increased repetition of the same shots, I guess. It needs a rewatch because with the knowledge of who the camera is the entire time, you can now reinterpret what Utena says in a lot of those scenes, and also maybe apply it to the specific recaps being shown, and then you draw parallels. We'll have a look. There's quite a bit there metaphorically. Let's say that for sure. What about next week? Ooh, bit of origin story stuff. And only Utena. No, okay, never mind. That seems like a big episode. Who? Shadow players? That sounds like shadow players. Like a shadow play. Am I making any sense? Because of how diegetic the Shadow Girls, or their voice actresses, were in this particular episode, like literally talking to Archeo. We'll see. We will see. Yeah, let's have another relook on that episode. I think a lot of it went by very quickly to the point where if you go back through with the information you know by the very end, you may see some more stuff and it may start to click a little bit more into place. But yeah, Archeo's a creep. Utena's getting groomed, which is never good. And Archie's just sitting in her little, metaphorical cuck chair, just kind of getting it on. Watching the stars, but not the real ones. Anyway, let's jump into some analysis. So now I understand something. A lot of the comments, once episode 30's reaction went public, were very explicit in saying that, well, two things actually. They were very explicit in kind of telling me off in a way, you could call it that, for not considering Utena a victim in all of this, seeing trademark grooming in front of me and being a little bit of a victim blamer, which I guess I didn't see it from that perspective initially. I think there is part of the text there in episode 30, which is like, hey, based on its presentation and based on the information given to us, the audience, is to look at this situation and think that Utena is being somewhat naive. I think that is definitely within her character being very naive when it comes to a lot of things this arc. However, she is 14, 15, something like that. You can't really blame anybody for being naive at that age, especially when it's like literally trademark position of power and taking every position of power relative to Utena is Archeo there. So again, abusing that power, even unknowingly for somebody like Utena, is yeah, definitely something I should have kept in mind, right? But that's not even what I wanted to talk about. I just kind of wanted to address it as well. The thing I wanted to talk about was I metaphorically said that the car ride was these two having their first time together, right? Well, not his first time. We know that he does with everybody, but hers. I thought it was a sex metaphorically. They did a sex in the car. They didn't do a sex in the car. They did a sex in this episode, and people were very explicit about telling me that it wasn't. The car didn't always mean sex. It means it in a lot of cases, but not in that specific one, mostly predicated on this moment here in this episode, which is the reveal at the very end of what's happening, I guess. As soon as she starts biting the finger and gets a little bit short of breath, and you see the brown hand, you're like, okay, we know what's going on here, for sure, for sure. And it's very interesting, of course, from the Anchi perspective. Obviously, very attached to her brother, you know, abusing power or not, that's a relationship that exists. She's close there. Doesn't feel good, but she is. And she's also very close with Utena. So it's a double whammy for Anchi to be knowing what's going on, even being the one to give the roses to Utena, who then goes to Archeo. And that being the reason why they went out together. Like, obviously the glass is glazed over, she doesn't want to think about it, but is still like a willing participant in this plan. And again, obviously we don't see her true intention there. She's doing very good at remaining neutral in her emotions, but it can't be good. It can't be good at all. I guess based on the build-up of this episode, I was waiting for a moment where it all just went, oh, and everything made sense. Instead, the episode is just very clever. It's very clever about reveal of information and filmic techniques and shots chosen and a lot of things from that perspective. And I think a rewatch here will do wonders for it. Much like episode 13 back in the day, the first recap, I believe that was, it does a lot to show Archeo and his I guess, control over the situation and his knowledge beyond what we knew at that point. I said this was exemplified by the Shadow Girls and that kind of expanding scope as we continue with the show. Based on the preview for the next episode, that may be another expansion of the scope of the Shadow Girls, even closer to reality, even closer to real life. And then, of course, so much silhouetting in the show, you go into like a shadow versus light type metaphor as well, broadly, and how do the stars impact that? How does the night impact that when you can only see the stars? There's a lot of stuff you can talk about very broad in the show from that perspective. But again, back on topic, episode 33 and episode 13 are one and the same because they expand that scope. They show how much Archeo has control over everything. They show I guess the major revelation of the episode, and something that I've been theorizing for a very long time, is that the end of the world isn't anything. He's the end of the world. You know, I'm going to go show you the end of the world. We still don't know what they see. I don't think we'll ever see it. What matters is that he's the one in control. He's the one that's been sending the envelopes the entire time. Again, predicated mostly on the Mikage stuff. When he puts down that letter in the flashback that has the rose seal on it, you get some clues in your head about who may be sending these letters. And again, who has given out rose seals in the show? Who has given them out to people? We've had Torga give one out to Nanami. Torga probably being in the pocket of the end of the world, right? I think it came from a letter initially as well. And Utena, the very start of the show, her prince, Archeo, gave her a rose seal, right? He's been the one in control the entire time. But again, like if you've been paying attention and I guess reading a wealth of knowledge of comments about the show up to this point, this shouldn't be exactly surprising, I don't think, that this guy was the bad guy the entire time and it doesn't really go beyond him. Again, even the people beyond him, the adults older than him, are in his hand. Think about Kanae's mother, right, from that perspective as well. Like, he's got everybody under his control. He's the be-all, end-all. He's the alpha and omega and the sigma. Don't forget about the sigma. The sigma's the new one. Very sigma, sleeping with a 15-year-old. Anyway, I'm getting off track. We should focus on the episode here. It's just very well told. I thoroughly enjoyed this one for sure. Well, thoroughly enjoyed's a bad thing to say. I didn't enjoy the sequence of events that occurred, but how it was told was fascinating. And I'm thinking about other really good recap episodes. The only episode, and this isn't even anime, that I can think comes close to any of these Utena recaps is Ember Island players from The Last Airbender, which is incredible. Watch Last Airbender. I know I don't have to tell all you people, you've probably already seen it, but do it. And watch Ember Island players and watch just... That's so good. It's so good. And yeah, this is the only show that has recaps on that level. And I think all shows should try to tell recaps in interesting ways if you have to do a recap. Because recaps are always they're a product of the production not going quite as planned, right? Or not always as planned, but sometimes we need a structured break, we need to reuse some footage, blah, 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 blah. Anime production is hard, I understand. But if you're going to do it like this. Do it in an interesting way. Do it almost in a meta way. It works wonders basically every time. Yeah, weird question for the day, chat room. What are some other really good recaps in anime? I'd love to hear some other examples and how they differentiate themselves. Let's dive into the episode, because I've just spent fucking 6 or 7 minutes just talking into the camera, which I guess, yeah, not beating the yap allegations. So a couple of things very early. We start the episode with a prolonged sequence scanning across, I guess you would call it a carnival in the background. There's a fair in town, there's a Ferris wheel. They went out on the town and did something. A thing occurred, right? At that same time, we are playing the kind of initial fable of the show, the fairy tale, that kind of thing, right? Purposely, we're not showing the footage, right? Of the normal thing that we would see associated with this little dialogue, because it is being recontextualized again here right now, right? Akio is the prince. We're pretty sure about that at this point. The prince did something back in the day almost in a manipulative kind of fashion, right? Like, if Utena was very young and Akio was the prince, we can recontextualize what the prince did with Utena back in the day as a pretty big no-no, like a smooch on the eye. If it was Akio would have been 38 at the time, so that's probably a no-go. And again, much like my theories about episode 30 and the Cinderella stuff and that kind of thing, we've taken away the fairy tale now. We no longer have that image that we've seen at the very start of the show. It's replaced with the now. The now is more important in Utena's mind when replaying this in her own head. You can kind of see this episode as the final straw of, I guess, all the build-up and the arc and all the closeness that has been associated with Utena and Akio up to this point, for sure. And yeah, the culmination here being that we no longer see that kind of fairy tale screen anymore. It's gone. I forget if we've gotten this explicit dialogue before as well, but there's later in the episode when we're talking with Saionji and Torga are talking about Akio. Akio's the one that showed her something eternal. It wasn't me, right? You may have thought it was me, Torga, and that may have predicated some of our beef, right? Some of the jealousy, some of the masculine competitive stuff that Saionji had going on, but in reality it was Akio the entire time. I forget if I mentioned this already, but I did mention it during the reaction. The retelling here is not the exact same read of the line from earlier in the audio department. They're reading the same kind of story again, but with a different voice. It's again meant to emphasize the difference there. Initially in the episode, I thought that, hey, we were going to start telling the Archie Prince story, right? Which has seemingly happened in the past as well, based on a 1-second flashback we saw a few episodes ago. I thought it was going to be that. Not quite the case. I also like the coloration here, obviously associating this with the nighttime drives we do with Akio. Just the dialogue here being recontextualized as well. This ring will lead you to me one day. Okay, it did. You gave me the rose seal. The rose seal took me to this school. It took me to the duels. It took me to you, Akio. Again, this ring will lead you to me one day is bad. We should be thinking that this is a bad thing. We don't want the ring to lead Utena to the villain. Again, perhaps the ring the prince gave her was an engagement ring. dog, she's like not old enough to be engaged. We could almost be saying something about arranged marriages there and that kind of thing, especially. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it, but you know what I'm talking about. And then this is the all important line, right? Based on what she saw, the princess vowed to become a prince herself one day. Now, what if we've been doing this arc overall, this show overall, except for subverting and deconstructing, casting criticism at, casting judgment on the idea of a prince? Why should Utena want to become a prince, right? When all we've seen that has come from that and from princes, princely people in this show, has been pain. Like, nothing came good from adopting this kind of princely, traditional, like, sacrifice yourself, all this kind of stuff, right? I'm thinking about Ruka and a lot of the things that people had to say about him as well, kind of adopting this prince stuff to a fault, being ultimately self-sacrificey to the point of not helping anybody and leading to an ultimately very melancholic ending. Is the classic fairy tale stuff applicable to real life? We're seeing that explored this arc. Again, the narrative here even casting judgment on that. Like, was that really such a good idea? Well, initially when we heard this, it's like, was that such a good idea? Because she's breaking barriers and becoming a prince, right? Is that a good idea? Is society going to like that? That's not what the question is here. It's like, should we even want to be that? You know? It's not Utena, you shouldn't be that. Is it a good idea to go into school with these things and we're going to challenge gender norms and all that kind of stuff? It's not what we're talking about here. Should you even aspire to be this? That's what's being talked about here. And again, right after we hear that kind of fairy tale little thing, we have Anshi in the kind of planetarium all alone, right? And the shit shuts, if my fucking VLC wants to behave. Like there, right? Shuts, and we open back up on a, I guess you would call it a dejected Anshi. And Anshi is looking up at the constellations by herself, basically, right? Now, what's the difference here? In the past, we've seen this planetarium and everything within it shown in a more flattering light than this, right? This is a very fakeish blue. This looks very fake. These constellations look very fake. But when we've seen this, when Anshi's been there all alone with Archeo, it's been these beautiful nebulas, all sorts of different colors, deep purples, deeper blues, that kind of thing. Does this planetarium only shine like that in the presence of Archeo metaphorically for you? And when you're all alone, without him here, it merely just looks like it does in real life. Again, of course, the baggage here being that whenever the lights went down in the planetarium and we started looking at the stars, we boned. But Anshi's not boning this episode. Utena and Archeo are, right? Again, this recontextualization of the look of the stars with Anshi here all alone is very interesting, for sure. And the repetition in the episode of like, I don't want to look at the real stars, I want to look at these fake ones, right? Again, this is almost like a glasses lens, right? When we see the glasses lens kind of lighted over, right? Gendo Akari style, this is kind of what she's trying to do. She wants to look at something fake so she doesn't feel anything real and feel bad about it. She doesn't want to look at the real stars. The real stars will remind her of what she had with her brother, or what she thought she had with her brother, because again, that's still bad touch, obviously. But she doesn't want to look at that right now. She just wants to cover her eyes, and that's what's being gotten across here. The episode is called The Prince Who Runs Through the Night. It's Archeo. We're talking about Archeo running through the night, and again, contrasting real night with the fake night that Anshi is presenting herself with. It may seem like I'm going a little bit hard early, considering I've recorded for 18 minutes now, and I haven't really talked about much of the episode yet. As it turns out, a lot of it's going to be recap, so I'm not going to talk in that much detail about the stuff that isn't recap. So again, I guess I'm just trying to justify to myself that I'm not overanalyzing here. There is less content to analyze. Thus, we analyze harder. There's the dialogue there that I was talking about as well, and starts the theming in the episode around phone conversations, which are very important. A lot of different phone conversations between different characters. The presentation of the elements of the mystery of the episode as well. Did you get tonight's roses? Clearly talking to Archeo here. Yeah, because then we show the phone here. The phone here, and then Utena's stretching, right? Again, is this a room we've ever seen before? Or is this like Archeo's room, right? Because it's not the planetarium. but it's obviously still the same tower because we have such a view, right? Here's the roses in question, right? Or maybe she's talking to Akio. I'm not sure it really matters. Did you get tonight's roses? Like, did you get tonight's roses to give to Akio, or did Akio get tonight's roses from Utena? Either way, it doesn't matter. Here are the roses in question. I do like the element of the carnival as well. There's something very juvenile about it and makes everything feel all the more icky. I took Utena out for a date at the carnival. We took her to the fair. She went on the Ferris wheel and had fairy floss, and then we went home and boned. Like, that doesn't feel good. That's a bad. Like, red flags, obviously. I don't remember the last time I had this much fun. I feel like I've ridden every ride I could ever want. But I wish Himamiya could have come with us, and of course focusing on the roses that she gave out. Even in this moment, thinking about Himamiya, and potentially not thinking about her later on when things evolve from this point. Did I ever mention that I was an only child? And then she turns and looks at the camera. Now, what are we trying to say here? Obviously, it's a reveal of information mystery thing that the camera is Akio, and that's part of the figuring out of the episode that we do, right? That we've been looking at Akio the entire time. But what does that say about me, the guy watching it? Because we're in his point of view right now. We even swap point of views here as well. Because, well, here in a second, when Akio and we're placed in the passenger seat next to him, I'm sensing a sense of the show almost thinking that its audience is complicit with what's been going on. Almost a judgment on the audience and society as a whole as it pertains to the themes presented here. Maybe that's a reach, but yeah, being brought along on the grooming journey does not feel good personally, and that may be the point. We're supposed to look at this and not feel good, but also feel like we've been complicit in it happening. I only bring it up, right, because we get a little bit meta here and a little bit fourth wall breaking. We have the Shadow Girls on the radio, they're presenting a radio show, and they're talking about the beautiful autumn constellations. I do like the shot here as well, of no constellations being around whilst we're in the car, right? Instead, they're fake lights. Is there anything in that, maybe? I don't know, I can't really push that to the nth degree, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, look at the beautiful constellations. I don't see the constellations when I'm in the car and when I'm driving around. Is some of this going to culminate in some kind of thing about real stars or something? Because that's the tragedy of the stars as it pertains to the Anchi situation as well, right? She's like, no, I want to just look at the fake ones tonight. And they look kind of dull and kind of shit, right? But when they looked vibrant, when Akio was there, they were still fake stars, you know? They were never real stars. Does that make sense to anybody? Like, you may think that it's more inspiring when you're alone with him and it looks like, you know, amazing and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's still fake. It's still not real. I don't know. It's also a night for couples to glimpse into eternity is what we bring up here, specifically eternity as it pertains to the first of the flashbacks we do and talking about Saionji. Now, it's interesting that this comes back at the very end of the episode, and one of the questions from Utena, the last one being like, what is eternity, right? And then having that not be answered and then sex occurring. What are we meant to say there? Well, it's something about aging, right? Obviously. What is eternity? I'm gazing at eternity. This guy's seemingly not aged, that being Akio, right? Perpetually in high school, perpetually surrounded by the high school, predicated on the Mikage stuff as well. He's been around a very long time. So much of the theming of the show being about growing up, being about coming of age and new things happening to you, wanting to hold on to something eternal, something from the past, and not wanting to evolve beyond that as well. Again, I'm more just percolating on certain things rather than jumping into a full-on theory yet, but you know, we're throwing stuff at the wall, you know? So either way, on the radio show, we have a caller in, and he has a specific pen name, that being the end of the world. Let's give him a call. He may be able to answer this multiple choice quiz on what is eternity, right? Again, they're asking this question here. Utena asks that question at the end of the episode, something in that. Again, the camera here and the reveal, I believe at the very end of it all, is that this has been the drive home after the carnival, right? And we're right now almost in Utena's perspective. I believe she's sleeping at the moment, though. Something about shutting her eyes, something about not being aware of all the machinations going on here. Willfully unaware, maybe. Of course, I've said before, increasingly as the show has gone on, we've broadened the scope of the Shadow Girls, and the Shadow Girls have started to interact with the cast more and more. They've started to be reflected on diegetic pieces of the scene, whether it be the window in the lockers, whether it be that specific kind of really wide, almost like quad area where we've seen, I believe Shiori was standing in the corner one time. Like, yeah, characters interacting with it, dialogue-wise, giving a vocal response to the Shadow Girls. Even the one in the Judy episode about it being on the wall of the hospital, as they're in the hospital and they're in hospital kind of costumes, I guess, in nurses' uniforms. This is taking that to the nth degree and expanding it out even further, right? We literally have a character having a conversation with them now, right? These are the same Shadow Girls they're putting on a radio show. We don't see them, but we're talking with them. And I don't know if this implies that these two have been in cahoots the entire time, like putting on these things. It's a metaphorical pulling of the strings behind the scenes. But maybe, especially again with the most interesting detail being the preview for the next episodes and saying shadow players. So, did they exist in some form at some time? Right? Question mark? Something supernatural going on potentially? I don't know. He also mentions here that he works a side job, and, you know, are you supposed to work a side job when you're also literally chairman of the school? As long as nobody finds out, that should be okay. That side job, of course, being the villain. I'm gonna be the villain in my part time. You know, in my part time, I just make YouTube videos. Something equally villainous. Question 1. Which of the following is eternal? 1. A diamond. They do say diamonds are forever. 2. A beautiful memory. Maybe like a fairy tale or a retelling of something. Potentially with rose-colored glasses. See what I did there. And the last one here always being a joke answer. I don't know, a canned peach is eternal? I'm imagining they're going to spoil at some point. Either way, he's going to give the answer to what eternity is. But the whole time he's got this face of knowing what's going on. He doesn't want to give this audience to both the Shadow Girls and us, the audience, who are here along with his ride. Instead, here he answers the phone. Gotcha, on my way. He doesn't have much to say there. But then he says, sorry, I have to go to work. And then we... Listen, I have to go back to being a villain, yeah? And then we hear the car song start up. He goes from 80 to 160... to 320 to 640, obviously increasing my powers of 2 there, and kind of puts his costume on almost in a superhero-esque way. Now, I don't know if this is linear, if this conversation here was taking place before the Saionji stuff in episode 20, whatever it was, or it's more just any random job and shows that, hey, I put on this costume and I transform into the prince whenever, you know, I need to. And we're actually still on that nighttime drive with Utena, which is shot the very same way at the very end of the episode. I do love this text on the road as well, saying stop, and how we recontextualize that later in the episode as well, as less of a stopping of the car and more of a call, almost almost the audience calling for a character to stop what they're doing as well. And this is where we start to cut into the recap stuff. Of course, the dialogue chosen and the edits done are meant to exacerbate the things we're meant to be taking from the recap, I guess, and reflecting certain other characters. It's very obvious that we spend a lot of time here with Saionji, as it pertains to Eternity, and a very long time with Jiri as it pertains to Miracles, as opposed to the other characters, really. We spent a little bit of time with Cosway and stuff, but that's more in this perspective of family and stuff. Again, Miracles, Eternity, Family, all three reflect Archeo, who is the main subject of the episode. We have these questions here being posed at Saionji in the recap. What do you want? What do you aspire to? What do you wish to be? Yeah, kind of replaying this dialogue from the car with Saionji before, right? And I believe it's between him and Torga, talking about being an only friend and that kind of thing. And I guess a synthesis of the two themes we've seen for Saionji thus far, right? He's got a thing about masculine friendships as it pertains to Torga and being competitive in that way instead of, you know, challenging status quo male relationships, you know what I mean, and eternity, right? We're combining the two. Does a true eternal male friendship, a bond like that exist, right? However, upon seeing the end of the world, upon seeing Archeo, he becomes convinced that eternity does exist. Of course, the eternal thing in question here, I believe, being Archeo himself. And also maybe seeing Torga with Archeo as well. So he's seen a male bond, or whatever he perceives that as well as something eternal in Archeo's form. He's immortal, or at least presenting that way right now. He doesn't age. Is that not eternity? He's seeing what he wants to see. He thinks that that's attainable if he defeats Utena and blah, 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 blah. That inspires him to do what he's doing here. The cutting into the various aspects here as well, bringing in the scene from that Saionji episode about Akio showing Utena the stars. Of course, that kind of planetarium being so important to the theming here. It's nice that it's established here, as well as Akio's weirdo villain speech where he's like, hey, I'm Lucifer, kind of. I'm the villain. He basically said that to Utena, and she's like, oh yeah, sounds pretty cool. So Akio showed the girl something eternal and saved her, right? And it's almost like, the eternal thing, the car ride for Utena back in the day was already what he did back in the day with the fairy tale stuff, right? By showing her this prince and blah, 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 motivating her to do this and motivating her almost inadvertently into the duels, right? Remember what predicated Utena even wanting to join the dueling process anyway, right? It was, one, to save Wakaba, or to avenge her honor in a very princely way, based on the first episode. And as we continued, it was more and more to protect Anshi from whatever the hell else was going on. I don't want Anshi to hang out with Saionji. I think he fucking sucks, so I'm gonna keep fighting. These princely ideals were only instilled within you based on your interactions with the prince from a very young age. I showed her something eternal. Princeliness. And it became her basis for her being. I too once considered what the bride would want. The Rose Bride has no will of her own. Combined with, the eyes raising here. Okay, I know who you had a car ride with. And if you got that out of that interaction, maybe there's some element of truth in that. It seems like she takes that to heart a little bit. I don't remember that edit being there in the episode, but maybe it was. It was a while ago. Again, Anshi in that episode. Again, I thought so much of this arc was going to be about Anshi getting closer to Utena and falling out of the grasp of her brother. But that's very much not what this arc has been about. If anything, this was a false dawn at the very start here when Anshi started acting in Utena's favor, right? Helping her out of the way, blah, 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 doing all that kind of stuff. Seemed personally invested in her making it as far as possible. Of course, buoyed by the scene in the beds here, wherever it was. This one, where she wanted to tell her something but couldn't. If only she said what she wanted to say here, and we didn't go down the path we did in the rest of this arc. Now, again, there's some elements in the scene, right? Before, we just saw Utena looking into the camera. She could have just been talking to herself, or Choo-Choo, or somebody like that, right? But now we see a coffee cup, or a bit of tea, I guess. It looks like a green tea. Somebody else is in the room with her, and they're kind of watching TV. You'll notice Utena is looking at the TV. Whoever is the person that's in the camera right now has his eyes, gazed entirely just at her. Not good. Not a good look. In an interesting turn of events as well, or maybe just a fun coincidence, the Shadow Girls are also the ones commentating whatever fight's going on right now. Of course, mimicking the duels that have been shown in the kind of recap format. We mentioned the King of Imposters. The King of Imposters has been on top for 8 weeks now. This implies that you're the King of Imposters. Now, what do we mean by imposter there? I don't want to go through all the Monogatari stuff again, but there was a lot there about being an imposter. And ultimately taking, I guess paraphrasing, but a fake it till you make it type angle to what's going on, right? But however, what are you impostering as? Are you impostering as a prince, and is that even good? I don't know. Just 4 more wins and he goes on to challenge for the glory of Grand Champion Imposter King. 4 more weeks? Okay. 33. But 34, 35, 36, 37? 38? I don't know. Is that what we mean by that? Or is it 4 more fights? I don't know. There's been a lot of Rose duels thus far. Again, in a very obvious way here, you start talking about the champion being really something when you represent the champion in that metaphor. Do you think he'll get to be the Grand Champion Imposter King? I hope I get to do that. I want to do that. Me, Utena. I think you're doing that. From there, we cut into some more flashback stuff, and we bring up the Kozue Miki stuff. We specifically highlight some of the Utena interactions here, being jealous of getting a letter from a parent, not having parents from a very young age, and I guess being vulnerable to that kind of family connection. Again, as I've talked about, there's a very specific line which Akio uses on both Nanami and Utena, saying that we'll treat you like family. Again, I'm going to try not to reiterate everything from the analysis that I've already done on this episode, but got the causeway with the wild animals thing. We don't want to see our parents, and then Mickey very much on the other side, not letting go of that structure of family, right? However, also this sub-theme of the episode, especially for Utena, being around things not being what they seem. Like, this is what the special thing that Mickey was talking about the entire time looked like? It's a trashed garden. Is this really what was so special to him? Now think about Utena. She holds a fable in her head that was special to her, right? Based on potentially a rose-colored glasses type look. Is that really all it's cracked up to be? We see it at the start of some episodes, right? That little fairy tale. Is that all it cracked up to be, really? Is that even the correct presentation of events, or is that all you remember it as? Again, it seems like this beautiful fairy tale-esque memory, but in reality, was it just the starting of the grooming? I don't know. It's a bad touch. It's a bad touch type thing for me personally. Of course, metaphorically, Causeway here, jumping in and saving the two baby birds from the parents that have flown away, and the tree is going to get cut down. Still ultimately looking to and caring for her brother, metaphorically. Of course, the element in this as well, 2 points to this, right? One being the Mickey perspective, right? The Oedipus stuff that I talked about during that week, seeing, I guess, the girl that you want to bang, and that being your new mother. Like, there's something in that perspective-wise for Mickey, for sure. And to the Archie perspective, she's being used as a pawn in whatever Akio wants to have done in a situation, right? If this pushes Mickey more towards having the car ride and fighting Utena and kind of propelling his plot forward, then she's going to do that. She's going to do that for her brother. The dialogue they're chosen for Causeway is very important as well. If dueling means letting some stupid adult tell me what to do, then I won't do it. Because, again, doesn't trust adults, has bad experience there, wants to separate herself from that kind of thing. Again, there's lots of metaphors to that in the episode. But the tragedy of it is that in doing so, in thinking that you've attained your own independence, right? In thinking that you're flying free, you're only flying free into the duel again, into that same system that's being presented to yourself by Mr. Man, Mr. Akio. Again, even like, so you're outside gazing off at the moon, right? Even stargazing potentially. Mickey's stuck inside still playing that same old song, looking back to the past and what was there. Both characters here speak to elements of Utena in a way. Utena's looking back to the past like Mickey, with rose-colored glasses, thinking, hey, what happened in the past is propelling me forward now. It must be a good thing. It must be something I must hold on to, something eternal even potentially, right? And you represent the kind of the independence of Utena and the slay and the different ideas and that kind of thing. But in the end, both are just being used by Akio, right? The same way he's now using Utena. Utena's now gone and had a shower. We see her clothes here. And in a very creepy way, we kind of focus on them too. I don't like that. And she's drying her hair. Again, all these shots of her legs, shots of her body. His gaze never kind of leaves her. Again, giving a new meaning to the term predator shot as well. Bad touch. I don't like this. I think that Utena here is just kind of, what would you say? Just kind of like bitching? What's the word? Not bitching. Venting. Venting's a good word. Like Among Us. She's venting about the stupid teacher that keeps calling her stupid for doing Utena things, right? And then, of course, we had that very performative scene in episode 30 where he jumps in and says, hey, stop doing that. I like her uniqueness insofar as I can use it. But he said the quiet part quiet. Again, it means that Utena feels safe telling Akio about her troubles and venting about it. He can lend an ear, so to speak. And there's something in the dialogue there as well. They call her alum, but then they used to call her teacup. And then there was a name even before that, I think. What was in the dialogue there? Yeah, there was a name before that. Before everything, before teacup, that they used to call her. And we focus in on Utena here. She can't quite remember what that name was. I guess this goes to more of the mystery of the episode and that she's speaking to Akio. Akio would have been around for a long time, hence eternal, hence he's 58,000 years old, and he would have known what she was called from a very young age, her, nickname when she was a young teacher. There really is something about this episode, huh? It's impending for sure. Something about like the tension and the build up there, which is just, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And then we bring up the idea of bread and refrigeration, something that will come back in the very end of the episode as well. It goes to talk about expiring and things kind of going sour, things perishing, as opposed to eternity, which is being presented against as Akio in the scene. However, still speaking about Himamiya there, she's the one that would normally put it in the fridge and that kind of thing. Still thinking, still having Himamiya on her mind. A explicit focus on Anchi in all of these flashbacks as well, and how much of her has a role in what Akio's been planning, and that being presented here. Even the idea of purity being brought up here as well, and whatever Kozue and Anchi are doing right here, right now, may be reflected later in the episode. Again, I won't go into Anchi's specific moves here and what they're doing, but it was pretty clever back in the day, I remember that. And even the dialogue there, Miki is more, that little dialogue piece between Anchi and Utena, that I really enjoyed. Again, seeing somebody's very special radiant thing presented back at them and being unimpressed based on their description. Again, potentially when we get a more stark view of what has happened in Utena's past, a similar effect will happen on the audience. Yeah, Utena's been talking up this interaction with the prince the entire time. Maybe it's not exactly as romantic as initially thought. The Shadow Girls are now back on their radio show, and they're asking Akio another multiple choice question: which of the following is a miracle? Again, alluding to the Jiri stuff. 1, Edison's inventions. 2, meeting a prince. And 3, of course, can coelacanth? I don't know what that is. Then we start to talk about miracles and miraculous power and the princeliness of self-sacrifice, as it pertains to Ruko, of course. And his wish ultimately being granted in the end based on almost like an equivalent exchange type property. You gave up your life and now she's free from whatever binded her, I guess. There's a few things thematically here, even though I don't think they're as strong as the other segments. Juri's necklace, right? It still binds her to the past, the same way that Miki is bound to the past, the same way that Saionji is bound to the past. That's another connection, right? And ultimately, somebody's death being the thing that sets her free from that. Is that something? Can we apply that to the Utena situation in some way? Does somebody need to sacrifice something in order to break Utena free from whatever is chaining her, in the same way that Juri is chained, right? To a toxic thing. Is this anything? Maybe. Again, I talked about the recap structure overall at the very start of this segment as well. And I think I said like the meta layer was the thing that really set it apart. But also on a more like basic term, I just think it's a really well cut together sequence of events from the 2 episodes. They show all the important things, all the good looking things, all the, it makes me want to go back and watch these episodes again, Even something Prince lying as a means to an end. Is that something as it pertains to Akio and being presented here in the recap format to reflect that? Maybe. We've even got a penis tower here. Yeah, there's definitely something about the princely ideal, Akio and Ruka, and being reflected there. Now this here, now that we know who she's playing against, is a little bit more interesting as well, right? It's a game of Othello. I do not know how to play this game, but I'm imagining that Akio is the darker pieces, right? Something nighttime, something Shadow Girls, light versus dark, good versus evil, a kind of competition here on that kind of level, I guess. And you start talking about macaroni or something, macaroni pots. Now, I don't want to get too rude, but, something as well about spoiling food, putting together lunches, something linked to Anchi. Yeah, you could squint and make this into something, I guess. Something about having a heavy hand sometimes, right? Having too many spices in one thing, cooking too much pasta, overabundance, something like that, overflowing. Anyway, I'm not going to dig very much deep into that. There's something very vulnerable about the episode and very vulnerable about Utena here. She's just talking about regular, everyday stuff. The same conversations that she would have with Anchi generally. You would have to imagine this nighttime routine, kind of coming home from somewhere, showering, watching a little bit of TV, chilling, playing a quick board game before bed, having some tea, is something that she would have done with Anchi in the past. Now that is being superseded by her brother. Again, closer and closer to seeing the real you, but also getting closer and closer behind your defenses. You don't have any up anymore. You feel extremely comfortable around this man. Like, it's extremely conversational, and she's revealing all these extremely conversational details, and then is surprised when she looks down and realizes that she's losing. This is almost like the candle thing that I talked about in episode 30 as well. She's not realizing it, but her defenses are coming down, slowly but surely, right? It looked like she was winning the game at one point, right? Back here. Like, yeah, there's a few more white pieces there. I think there's majority. And then before she knows it, we're back over here with the board entirely covered in dark pieces, and she's losing. And then we cut back to the dirty stuff. I said in the reaction, this is just a really good scene. I'm very happy that they played it basically verbatim again. I liked seeing it again. It's very well directed. It's definitely one of the standout sequences in the show for me personally. Also, Shiori sucks. She's alright. I'm not as hard on Shiori as everybody else. Now, follow me on this one. I've got a Juri Nanami parallel as well. This moment here on the dueling arena, where Juri is absolutely heartbroken, cut away, like, free from what was binding her, but also loses hope because of that, is kind of similar to the Nanami stuff, right? She's cut away from her main thing, the thing that's driving her, her brother. At least, she thinks she is. She isn't really. She no longer has that familial connection. She makes one last play, ultimately loses, and then loses all hope and is left in a state of despair. Now, that's a reflection of Juri and Nanami that I didn't see before, which is quite clever. The other thing here that I've noted in the episode as well is we keep saying the roses, right? Did she get the roses? Did you get the roses from me? That kind of thing. And it's been a subtext in the episode for sure, or in the episode, in the show in general before. Just, Archie spends all her time in that kind of sunlit garden right there in the middle of the school in the little greenhouse, and she's growing a lot of roses. Who is supplying these roses for the rose duels? Archie. Maybe even literally this time, instead of just metaphorically, which I thought it was in the past. Like, she's giving these roses to people metaphorically as she's pushing them closer and closer into dueling, but she may also just be doing it literally as well. I do think there is a conversation to be had, right, around the characters that continue to be, I guess, blind to what's going on and how happy they are, living in happy blindness, in happy, kind of naivete, let's say, versus the characters that have quote-unquote become woke in Juri and Nanami, right? And how distraught they are. And the system piling on the pain here, right? Making it rain even harder on Juri. She's cut herself away from what was motivating her and walked away from the situation. I'd be surprised if we see her in any real portion again based on the events, right? But as a result, the system is shunning them. I no longer have use for you if you've cut yourself away, if you're no longer interested in the things that interest us. All this predicated, of course, on the castle making it rain here, that being the central metaphor. Castle connect to Prince, castle connect to whoever's running the duels, castle connect to End of the World, castle connect to Archeo. Of course, even the Shadow Girls here explaining Ruka's plight, connecting the Shadow Girls again to whatever the hell else is going on. Now here we have this shot here, we still have the carnival reflected in the scene, but almost in an impossible kind of way. Like, this reflection must be off a window. We're either looking like on one side of a window, the other side, us, like the carnival's behind us, and we're peering into the room. Is that what's happening here? And the light's on, the bedside kind of table light, lamp, that's what you call it. As the lights are turned out there by a female hand, I think. Yeah, Utena's hand there is turning out the light. And then we have Utena sleeping. We're still in a first-person perspective, of course. She's turned away, but then she turns her head back this way and sees us staring at her, basically. Interesting. Oh, that's so good. She kind of looks at us for a moment, us being Archeo, of course. She realizes what's happening, and then she looks straight up in the air. It's like she's still kind of hiding away from what's about to happen here. Miracles happen every day, we just don't notice them, is an interesting line from you as well, considering how much you're in control of everything. Of course, the star metaphor of this thing, the constellations, you being associated with stars, even fake stars, and stars guiding many different civilizations for a long time. Stars being associated with destiny. What's in my stars? What's my star sign? All these kind of things, right? You're in control of all that. Things may be perceived as miracles, but they're only because I deem them to happen. I am Alpha and Omega. I am God. I'm the God of this world. Or the devil. Of course, all the themes just, again, falling in on themselves here. Here we have the scariest shot in the entire show. So this is a first-person perspective of a certain person on top of another certain person in bed. Now, what could this imply? Utena still really unsure here. Eyes darting this way, eyes darting the other way. Doesn't really want to confront what she knows is about to happen here. Of course, defaulting back to talking about just random shit, not wanting to focus on what's happening right in front of her. Like today was really fun. We played around till this late, but I still have to make my lunch for tomorrow, and thinking about lunch tomorrow as opposed to, again, what's right in front of her right now. It's a very great voice performance here as well. Just so much tenseness, unease, and then again becoming increasingly breathy as we continue. You can imply things. You know what I mean there. It's very well done. This scene obviously culminates in the question of asking what eternity even is, and then the scene evolving from there. But almost like she's avoiding that question up until this point by talking about all this mundane stuff, everyday food, what I'm making for lunch. Even bringing up him and Mia again here, which increases the guilt factor, of course. In the same way that when you were on the car ride, you brought up Kanai, right? Like, I want to bring up things in front of Akio, so he's like reconsidering what he's doing right now. Hey, what about Archie? Think about Archie. Think about my relationship as it pertains to Archie, think about yours and what we're doing here. I can't think of anything else. It's almost like you're running out of mundane things to talk about him with. Even bringing up an omelette here. You could even link that into the Nanami egg stuff and how that was associated with sex ed and that kind of thing as well. Something, your egg, something, scrambling it. Again, it's a bit of a squint, but you could make that kind of leap if you wanted to. The trademark sign of what's going on here is the bite of the finger here, or a little bit closer in there, tense eyes, something. Again, I'm dancing around it, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, right there. That's the shot. I wonder what's happening below the camera. Looking Akio in the eye here. Hey, what do you think I should make for lunch tomorrow? Instead of asking Archie a similar question, we're now defaulting to Akio, asking him what to make for lunch. Again, matter of fact. Again, superseding this relationship that you had with Archie, almost erasing it. There's definitely something about food in this episode as well that I'm not quite grasping. Like the specific foods brought up. I brought up the egg and that connection before, but salmon, asparagus, bread, making a sandwich for tomorrow. And again, just trying very, very hard to remember any random thing I can talk about instead of facing what's right in front of me. We left all that food out. Is it still good to eat? I don't know if it is. It may perish. Hey, maybe in thinking about that and thinking about refrigerating food, we should turn our attentions to the actual question here at play. And as we get increasingly breathless here, we turn looking like that, and we ask the question of what eternity is as a stop sign comes up on screen. Contrasting eternity when nothing stops, nothing ever stops, nobody stops, with the actual stop sign on screen. Maybe an instruction for Utena that she's not quite heeding at the moment. But again, she's being groomed. We need to be not victim blamey. Yeah, this sucks, obviously. And again, the bringing up of the eternity in contrast to the food which perishes. I'm not quite sure what to make of it all. It's definitely profound. I've definitely found some things to talk about in the episode overall. But I think I need to see our eventual conclusion here to, make my final piece with what the show's trying to say about all of this. I will say right now it's very cohesive. I'm finding, again, everything falling on itself in a very satisfying way. And I think especially my observations today around what's going on with you and your past and your princely story and how that's being influenced now and compared against other characters and what's happened in their past, that was all coming to the fore in a very satisfying way for me. I think your princely situation, in reality, isn't all you've been cracking it up to be. Of course, on the other end of it all, you have that kind of scene with Utena and Akio. At that same time, you have Archie all alone, sitting in the dark, looking at these fake constellations, hiding herself from the truth, going upon somebody else's destiny, right, that they've planned out for you, as opposed to what you actually want. I've been saying it since almost the start of the show. What does Archie actually want here, and how can we achieve that? I guess this is the other side of the conversation we had at the very start of the episode. This is the reveal. This is, hey, I'm the one that gave her the roses. I'm the one that's, sitting here. The one I was talking to the entire time was Archeo. Did you get tonight's roses? Oh, yeah, well done. Showing, again, once and for all, that Archeo and Anchi are working in tandem to get to these goals, as we've seen a number of times now, up to and including the fucking hair clip and everything that went on in the Nanami episode, the banana, the everything. And then, of course, the reveal as well that in the passenger seat, maybe not the entire time, but definitely this time, was one Utena, with her eyes shut, not really knowing what's going on behind the scenes here, and only being woken by Archeo so he can put his nefarious plan this episode into place. Yeah, remember the fun carnival day we had? Now I'm going to proceed to groom you. Epic. Of course, contrasting the stars tonight that they saw at the carnival, right? Even maybe the carnival lights as a stand-in for real stars as well, weren't they beautiful, right? I'm going to leave Anchi to look at the fake stars, right? Or she's going to make herself look at the fake stars for other reasons, but hey, the stars, and me and you, Utena. You know what happens when me and Anchi look at stars? We bone. We looked at stars tonight. We bone, however real or fake those stars may be. Something imposter, and Utena saying, I never expected we would end up doing what we did. Yet to be seen whether this was the carnival date or whether it was everything else. Again, all I came to do today was deliver the roses, predicated on Anchi's planning. We could even say that this here is Utena's car ride. Her second car ride this time. She needs multiple car rides where everybody else just needs one. So I talked about that episode for all that time, and I'm still not done, because again, that kind of rewatch there that you just watched me run through was me kind of, discovering a few things. But I'm still yet to put it all together. And I think that's what I'm going to endeavor to do here with this last segment. I guess we go back to that point, which was made a few episodes ago now, about the first arc being thesis, the second arc being antithesis, and this one being synthesis, right? And this is the ultimate synthesis. We're bringing together everything we've known so far, everybody's individual arcs, and trying to make sense, trying to find some commonality, trying to find a point of what we're trying to say with Utena up to this point as a piece of fiction. I think the best way to do that is to look at the individual characters and then come back and look at Utena. I discussed this a little bit before, but I'm just putting it all together here so it's in one cohesive part at the very end. So let's start. Let's go around. Let's start with Saionji, right? What's Saionji's deal? He has a masculine friendship, a rivalry, a bond with Torga. That bond is challenged by feelings of envy, feelings of jealousy, feelings of inadequacy around Torga. However, the only reason he still holds on to Torga is because of a memory of the past, right? That memory being the specific scene we keep seeing of the bandage being put around Torga's hand or around Saionji's hand. I don't know which way they go there, but, they had a fight in kendo. Somebody hit somebody else's hand and the other one bandaged it up, right? This true bond of, hey, yeah, we can fight together, we can compete, but at the end of the day, we still care about each other. And that being the ideal that Saionji keeps wanting to, I guess, aspire to be. Now, to the present, right, things have changed, again, based on the coffin scene and based on other things, and Saionji is now holding on to that in what he's doing now, searching for that eternity in both a male bond sense and the even idea of eternity sense. If things will come to an end, if change will occur, and things are really good now, then why that's a bad thing. I want to hold on to what I have with Torga right now. And again, to the theme of the show around growing up and coming to terms with that. Next on the list, we have Mickey. Mickey is holding on to this radiant moment that he had with his sibling in Kozue, when they were playing the piano together in the garden and everything seemed so simple. But again, as explored in the Shadow arc, when we see the other side of this through Kozue, this read of the scene wasn't exactly what it seemed, right? And we get two varied perspectives from Mickey and Kozue. Mickey going in one direction, wanting to go back to the past to play the shitty games that suck ass. No, to go back to the past to hold on to that memory, right? He doesn't want to grow up. He holds on to his youth. He doesn't progress further He's a late bloomer. All the other boys are a lot bigger. He's a bit younger. That kind of thing, right? And again, part of Mickey's arc being goaded by older boys into doing more masculine things, like lusting after Archie, going for the duels, that kind of thing, wanting to possess her, even though he may think his cause is righteous, it isn't in the end. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Cosway, who is running away from that memory as far as possible, out of feelings of inadequacy and almost as we've gone into Cosway in the past. Growing up so fast is almost a signal to Mickey to not grow up, right? So it's almost a tsundere way. She wants to keep Mickey as young as possible and as pure as possible and as childish as possible by sacrificing her own purity and going out ahead and being more mature than he is right now, right? As a warning, hey, stop doing this, you stay the same. And that's the kind of the contradictory nature of those two characters. And again, I thought my part in the video earlier about both of these sides being reflected in Utena. It's something I'll mention here in a second as well. As we keep going around, Juri, let's look at Juri. Juri is holding on to this thing with Shiori. Whatever experience in the past made her like Shiori is fueling the now, right? And with these next two examples, I'll do Nanami as well. I see like we've cut into this thing that they're holding on to already. Like literally, we cut the locket from her chest. I've talked about it a number of times. The locket being a symbol of this memory, but also being a chain, being a prisoning device around her, right? It's stopping her from moving on. It took Ruka and immense sacrifice and whatever else went on, Ruka almost playing the villain in a princely way, to self-sacrifice himself to save her, right? And again, Judy is very self-sacrificey as well. What would she do for Shiori? Blah, 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 spin out from there. But again, the whole problem is predicated on Judy holding on to Shiori, right? Same with Nanami. Nanami was holding on to this relationship with Torga, the most important thing. Think about the memory, the one we keep replaying, even in a very similar way to Utena and Anchi, the kiss on the eye, the kissing away of the tears. This is her fairy tale. This is her moment, right? That is ripped away from Torga's little scheme that he had going on in the past couple episodes, right? And at the end of it all, she's cut away from that and she's left distraught. She's left with nothing else to do. She feels like she's failed in a way. Her entire worldview has been shattered. It's a very tragic situation, but again, only predicated on holding on to the past, a past again that was built on something fake, right? Again, the relationship between Juri and Shiori, built on something fake, right? The Saionji one, it's only based on a perspective, and only based on a warped perspective based on the coffin stuff, right? That's what changed everything. So again, I've gone around to a lot of the characters, and you could probably apply it to other ones, apply it to Wakaba, and whatever else was going on with her princely stuff, and then you know, the class stuff that I've been talking about and wanting to progress from being a side character to a main character, from somebody unimportant to somebody important, and how I guess holding on to the past and holding on to cultural ideals there is holding her back in a way. And then, of course, Archie. And Archie we haven't really talked about yet on purpose. Archie is a character shrouded in mystery who seems to do things on a whim, and whatever she needs to do, she needs to perpetuate this game. She needs to she needs to do whatever Akio wants her to do in the moment, now that Akio's been basically revealed as the main villain. Not that he wasn't before, but you know what I mean. She's been working for him the entire time and doing random shit on account of the end of the world telling her to do so. But again, the small flashback we've seen, this is only predicated on the past and her past relationship with Akio. That's the only reason why she's holding on to this. In that way, she's very similar to Utena, right? And almost being groomed in the same way. Well, I'm holding on to this shining, shimmering thing from the past. Akio realizes he can use that as leverage, so much of that being built on the past, and we have a character that is essentially immortal doing that. We're trying to say something there, of course. And then the stuff I touched on in the episode about Akio almost being the god of the school in that way, the god of the world that matters to this show. He's the one pulling the strings. He's the one that propagates miracles. He's the one that demonstrates something eternal. And now that I've said my piece about everybody else, we need to focus on the most important character of them all. The one whose name is on the box. Utena, right? What can we say about Utena from the learnings we've learnt about every single other character that I've talked about here? Utena is holding on to something from the past that may be fake. That thing may be fake. That may talk to this imposter thing we have going on as well, right? Everybody's an imposter in their own way. That's why we call it the imposter championships in that little part early in the episode, right? Like, yeah, everybody that's fighting up there is an imposter because they're working upon fake information. So let's go to the specifics of that fairy tale again, right? So, her parents died, she was left orphaned, she was distraught, and specifically this has happened with a couple of characters already as well. They were at their lowest moment, and then somebody swept in, and that was what was inspiring, right? And who swept into Utena's life but the prince? The prince, Akio swept into her life. Again, this man was very much older than her at this point. We can establish that as well. So it adds to the grooming allegations. Of course, he was much older, she was much younger. I've known this girl for a long time and now we're boning. That's textbook groomer, right? He comes along to her, he makes her feel better, however he does, right? And then gives her a rose seal. And that rose seal is like, hey, we're engaged now. It's almost like an engagement ring. We will come together again based on this ring. And it seems like this was Utena's own doing, but you'd have to imagine this was part of the plan now. I'm talking, of course, about becoming a prince based off of that. You couldn't come together again, come to this school with the rose seal and be a duelist, right? If you just, were your normal self back in the day before you took on this princely ideal. And I mentioned it in the reaction earlier as well. The first two things that Utena does at the school are very princely and gets her involved here, right? Specifically with Wakaba, wanting to defend Wakaba's honor and go and fight Sayonji, right? And then you have Anshi, who is in a bad situation because of everything that's going on, right? I want to protect her, so thus I am drawn into the game. Anshi, almost in those first couple of episodes, trying to bait Utena in because she knows that it's part of Akio's master plan. And now, of course, this episode is the feel bad because you've seen how everything in the show thus far has essentially been fake. It's been leading up to this moment. Akio's now essentially got him what he wanted the entire time. He's got another person in his kind of debt that he can use, right? Another person, another victim, I guess you could say. And it feels like the heroes have lost in a way, based on, again, the system overall having their worst interests in mind and leading them down something that they don't even want. And now you take a step back and you realize what Utena as a show is trying to say. Again, the preface of this entire rant that I've just gone on, right? What is this show trying to say about society, about the world, about all these other things, right? It is telling us that us as individuals sold something fake from a very early time in our life. And again, you can apply this to many myriad aspects of society. So let your brain take you where it wants to, right? You're sold a lie. You're sold a reason for being, a motivation, a dream. But at the end of the day, unless there is a revolution, that dream will only inevitably end you into the same system, into the same fights, into the same thing that only benefits the one guy at the top. The chairman of the school, the puppeteer, the god, the alpha, the omega, the one behind it all. And again, based on the show's theming, you could say that that's like patriarchal, or again, based on some of the other theming in the show, you could say that's staunchly political and it calls for, I guess, a different system of government almost. And yeah, deeply, deeply fascinating, and I'm only scratching the surface of everything that's going on because everything has been evidenced with so much content, so many songs, so many metaphors, so many everythings, right? And there's still more to go. That's the craziest part. So yeah, again, this was a long segment to put on the very end, but I just really like this show, and I like what it's trying to say, and I think it's all coming together to feel so cohesive and whole. It's almost insane, right? Again, it's not straightforward. You got to think about it sometimes, but when you think about it, again, aided with the people around me, with the commenters, with the Discord, I've really come to appreciate what's going on here. Just wanted to say my piece there. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. That was fantastic. It's definitely the one I've talked about the most, but again, I had the time here today to talk about it as well, so that definitely helps. But everything's coming together, but not in a good way for our characters, but that was expected, obviously, based on where we are in the story, end of second act and all that jazz. This episode, it's masterful. It really, really is in what it wants to do, how it wants to bring together everything, how it presents this information, how it's borderline scary in spots, definitely showing what the creators think about what's going on here, and that it's not a good thing. It's definitely being framed villainously, for sure. And interested insofar as the next episode that seems to go into a bit of the origin stuff, as we've firmly established in this episode that all these other characters and their origins and their specific fairy tales that are, propelling them along aren't all they cracked up to be. And hey, are we going to see that shown in Utena's past? If we see it next episode, I think that's what we're implying from the preview. And then, of course, the Shadow Girl connection, which I thought was odd. But yeah, I had a great time here today talking about the show. Obviously, not too jazzed about the sequence of events, but I think it's good art. I think they've done a great job there. It's holding up its end of the bargain from a production point of view. It's about all you could ask for a recap episode, really. One of the best episodes thus far. I feel like I say it every single week. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week. I don't know stopping points anymore, so if you guys want to tell me stopping points, I've seemingly forgotten. So whether that's on the Discord or on the YouTubes, I'm just going to go 2-1-2-1 from here on in, unless somebody says something else. Basically that. But yeah, this was really good. Shill stuff, Patreon. You can get the next episodes a week early if you're watching this on public YouTube, of course. Discord, join the Discord and talk to me about Utena. That is your prerogative to do so, of course. Subscribe, like the video, Twitter, comment, all that sort of jazz. And thanks for watching this week. What a ride, honestly. Kind of suspect. Anyway, I'll catch you guys next week. See you later. Bye.